Alright, good morning all. Alright, I welcome you to today's class. We are going to be talking about EML, Education Management 245. Education Management 425. Education Management 425. Actually, we're going to look at the behaviorism, some of this theory. The course code is Learning Theories and Practices. So we were able to look at some of the learning theory, which we see it actually involves one behaviorisms, which we say they focus on observable behaviors. You learn the behaviors, study the behaviors of the learner, and you use it in such a way that it can actually reinforce or modify through external stimuli. That means you use that behavior you have studied from your learner, you create an external stimuli that will reinforce in their place of studying. For example, in a classroom setting, an educator can actually apply behavioral principle, which he or she can use reward to encourage participation and motivation. For example, let's say you provide stickers for completed homework, can actually reinforce positive behavior. It can actually encourage the learner to do well in his or her academic. Now, the second learning theory, we talk about the cognitivisms. The cognitivism derived from what? Cognition, right? So, cognitivism, they actually highlight the mental processes that are actually involved in learning, such as thinking, memory, and problems solving. So they actually highlight mental processes that deals with thinking processes and problem solving skills. When applying this theory, which is the cognitivisms, um, educators might use strategies, right, methods that promote metacognitions. That means helping students think about their own thinking. For example, a teacher could teach students how to use graphic organizer to structure their thought during a writing assignment. Can you see it? Can actually teach the student to use graphic organizer on how to structure their thoughts during a writing assignment or writing essay or composition, right? So the third learning theory which we look at, we see is constructivism, which we see the policy that learners actually construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experience and reflecting on those experiences. We see a teacher influenced by this perspective might design a collaborative learning project where students can able to solve real world problems in group tools, engaging them in active learning. So actually understanding this principle allow educators to reflect on their teachings, practice, and adapt their strategy based on the context. Number one, two, learners need. Number three, and content being taught. For example, let's say in a subject where students show varied degrees of understanding, an instructor might employ different teaching methodologies or methods, right? Combining direct instruction for some students while facilitating peer collaboration for other students. All right. So today our deep learning is going to be on learning objective 2, which we are going to look at understanding the learners in terms of diversities and in its implications. So we're going to look at how learners are in diversities and the implications. So this objective, you should understand that learners' diversities is actually essential. Yes, is essential. When we talk about the diversity, we are talking about the diverse backgrounds, abilities, and learning preference of students, which is actually very essential for creating an effective learning. Now, we will actually emphasize the need for educators to understand how this diversity imparts students' learning. You should understand that learners actually comes from various cultural, linguistic, and socio-economic backgrounds, right? And these factors can actually significantly um, influence their educational experiences. Take, for instance, a student who speaks a language other than English at home. This student may face challenges in an English only classroom. That means a classroom that is only limited to English speaking. So a student who came from a cultural background or a home that they doesn't speak much of English, there you discover that this student will have some problems in learning if he actually comes to an environment where English is the only setting for teaching, right? So actually uh, understand such needs that they allow teachers to develop strategy that will actually support the learners appropriately. So understanding the cultural backgrounds and diversities, the linguistic and socio-economic barrier can actually give the teacher a clue or a strategy on how he should navigate in order to bring effective learning to the student. So let's say, moreover, considering this um, factor, or consider this diversity, we don't want to call it a weakness or a disability, which is called uh, dyslexia, dyslexia or ADHD, dyslexia or ADHD is actually considered as a neurodiversity, which includes students with learning, per se, let's say, disability like the dyslexia I mentioned. It actually enables educators to create more inclusive classroom. Dyslexia are students who find it difficult to express their thoughts in writing. They are not proficient in writing, speaking skills. So these are people that they actually have a lot in them, but actually they take times to process informations, and they are slow in writing and speaking as well. So for these ones now, for instance, a teacher will actually might use assistive technology and differentiated instructional strategy. So the instructional strategy must be differentiated in order to help students with different learning profile. An example could include, let's say, using audiobooks. Yes, using audiobooks or interactive apps that cater to vary learning style. So these dyslexia, there are people that they understood fast by audio sounds. You understand? Audio sounds. You can use this as a what, instructional tools to aid their learning process. So additionally, now the cultural responsive teaching practice are very essential if we actually want to address diversity needs of all students, right? Now, as an educators, we must what, incorporate uh, diverse perspective, diverse perspective into the curriculum, and acknowledge the contribution of various culture. So we must imbibe the contribution of various culture into our curriculum. For example, let's say a history lesson could include multiple viewpoints on historical event. Can you see? Allowing students from different backgrounds to connect with the material more meaningful. Are you getting it? So now if you look at it now, you'll discover that in African context, in history, there are some minor cultural, minor languages which have a rich culture, but then this culture they are not what they are not being incorporated into the curriculum. So the environment, the culture that surround the environment need to be what included in the curriculum, like history, in order to aid this learner to understand or to appreciate the diversity or the diversification of culture. And then so we are going to be talking about the learning objective 3, which actually we are going to learn how the some factors that affect environment and assessment and their importance. We're going to learn the factors that affect learners' environment and assessment and their importance. Now, the learning environment actually encompasses three. We have number one, the physical, number two, the social, and number three, the emotional dimensions. Now, all you have to understand that all of which they all play a critical role in student learning. Actually, this objective addresses how these factors, in conjunction or in connection with effective assessment strategy, influence students' engagement and even their what achievement. So let's say a positive classroom environment fosters a sense of belonging. So if there is a conducive um, a classroom that is positive in nature, it actually fosters a sense of belonging to the student and encourages the students participation. Yes, very important. Now, factors such as classroom layout, I getting it, resource availability. These are positive classroom environment that actually will make or engage the learner to participate, right? And peer relationship, they all significantly affect how students learn. So if the peer relationship is a bad one, then it also affects the learners. For example, let's say a well-organized relationship, a well-organized classroom with collaborative learning area using can actually promote teamwork. Yes, when there is a well-organized classroom with collaborative learning, can actually promote a teamwork, which we see in the learning theory is found under constructivisms, right? Okay, and enhance students' interaction. Now, educators can actually adapt their environment to make learning spaces more welcoming and conducive to exploration. Yes, exploration. Moreover, yeah, the design and implementation of assessment are pivotal, are very crucial in understanding learning progress. Yes, educators might ensure that assessment align with what? Learning objective. Assessment align with learning objectives and consider individual student need. Are you seeing it? In a positive classroom, an educator or an instructor or a teacher must consider individual student needs if actually wants all the students to have effective learning. For instance, let's say formative assessment such as quizzes or class um, discussion can actually provide ongoing feedback and help teachers adjust instructions based on student understanding. Can you see it? So if there is actually a feedback, right, that is where they will organize a formative assessment on the teacher and give him a feedback, can actually help to bring adjustment um, to any um, mistakes in order to bring the student to the what, to the point of understanding, even as you are delivering your classes or lecture. So as such, educators should consider incorporating various assessment methods, including project-based assessment and self-assessment to accommodate diverse learners. So you can, as an educator, you can incorporate project-based learning to assess your student. Right, this comprehensive approach to assessment encourage growth. Actually incorporate, it actually approach, it actually encourages a growth mindset, allowing students to focus on their learning journey rather than purely on grades. So in our next learning objective, we talk about conceptualize the needs of the learners and the process of learning and its importance. Thank you.